really welcome you all to yet another episode of Dissolving Fear. This is actually our 36th night talking about the subject of dissolving. And I had a conversation this evening, or this afternoon actually, with an old high school friend of mine who after we sort of started to talk about our lives and whether we were okay or not, and whether he was okay and his family. We talked about our kids. We talked about all kinds of things. We talked about high school. We talked about all of our memories of the past. And then he said to me, he goes, I've been paying attention to what you've been doing online. And he goes, I really love it if you talked about anger. And because I am just so mad at what is happening to my life and the world around me. And it's just driving me crazy. So we had this really cool conversation. We talked about the past and we drummed up all kinds of stories. Um, and that in and of itself was sort of a healing balm for us. And I'll get to that in a little bit later. But he wanted me to kind of focus on this concept of anger and being mad. He was just mad at the insanity of what was happening in the culture, mad at his career that it really kind of took a hit in the last few months, like a lot of ours did. Just mad that life as he knew it basically has been turned upside down. And I can identify with all of that. I can certainly also recognize that maybe those of you who are online looking at this and taking a look at what I've been doing for the last month and a half would recognize that it's challenging. It's just been so challenging on so many levels, and this is our greatest crisis in my generation. I'm 55, and I don't care if anybody knows that. I'm 55, and this is the most extraordinary existential crisis that I think my generation has lived through and living in, and it's challenging. It is really seriously challenging. So I don't want to dismiss that, but there are ways to dissolve the effects that it has on us, and that's what I've been doing really for the last month and a half. Is looking at scripture, looking at other religious texts, looking at golden rule theology, and looking at how our whole Abrahamic belief structure, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, look at these kinds of things, and how our Hindu friends and our Buddhist friends also look at it too. So when we're talking about anger, what are we really talking about? We're talking about these feelings that go deep. And what anger is often doing is it's showing us, or it's telling us, that something isn't quite right. Something is settling in the pit of our stomach, and it's fomenting up in our personalities and our sense of character, and it's impacting the way we respond. And it's a very, very normal experience to be mad about something and to be angry. But the first stage in addressing any of these really difficult feelings is to name them, right? So many of us, and especially a lot of men in my life, we have a tough time naming the emotions because we kind of grew up in a generation where if you admitted you were angry, if you admitted you were mad, if you admitted you were sad, if you admitted you were upset, if you admitted you were emotionally unstable in any particular way, then A, you didn't get the job, you didn't get the girl, you didn't get the feeling, you didn't get the power, you didn't get the authority, you didn't get the consent, you didn't get all kinds of things. So, we had to like bury those emotions and not pay attention to them. In fact, often ignored them at really are at a great loss. So, it's been 5 decades, but I finally realized that when I am feeling something, I name it. It may not be pretty, it may not be nice, it may be extremely inconvenient. It may be, I may be revealing something. I may be vulnerable in sharing what I really feel. But for God's sakes, it's better doing that and spewing it out than rather building it up like a champagne underneath a cork ready to blow. because when I blow like a volcano, it's not a pretty sight. So we have to recognize that this whole kind of anger paradigm is building as a result of a sense of futility, a sense of unhappiness. It is it is all of our restlessness, and it's all of our irritable moments and our discontent with whatever it may be that's driving us to the point where we're really kind of pulling our hair out, and it makes us angry. Now, that said, that's stage one, right? We recognize what it is, we name it. Then the question becomes, well, who and where do I deposit this lovely, pile of junk that's foaming at the mouth outside of my mouth and my lips? And the truth is there are many places you can do that. Now, what I'm always recommending to people is that you find somebody you trust, and sometimes that's our partners, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it has to be somebody else that you have a relationship with, where you can actually level with that person. And you know, I know, it's like the thing we want to do the least. We don't really want to have to share our stuff with anybody. A lot of us have therapists. A lot of us have pastors. Some of us have people in recovery in our programs that we can talk to. Some of us have just really darn good friends that we can just open up the lid and say, you know what, I'm really struggling with this, and here's why. Um, One of the beautiful things that happens when we're in crisis and when we're kind of in chaos is that the lid on our level of feelings is loose. We know we need to reveal more, and I love the word reveal, because what we're doing when we're using that word is that we're taking off the layers. We're shedding the layers of how we feel, and it's such an important thing to do. We don't see it demonstrated very often in our culture because we like to hide things. We don't really want to show anybody our weak spots. I mean, God forbid we actually be vulnerable. Um, but the truth is that if we don't let it out, then the truth will never set us free. And there is that biblical quote which basically says, when you reveal the truth shall set you free. And that's really the bedrock of that understanding of that quote. And I can't remember where it actually comes out of, but it's definitely there. And truth, veritas, if you want to use the Latin, is echoed throughout the Old Testament, throughout the New Testament, throughout the Quran. It's way more important to be upfront and honest about things than hide. Hide, lie, deceive, avoid, deny. I mean, we see this all over the place, and it's just an embarrassment, if you will, of humanity, if you ask me. It's way more important to be truthful, I think, but that's just me. So those two things, you name it, you find somebody to work with. And then the third thing is that when you are set free, what it does is it opens up the opportunity to dismantle and to further dissolve, okay, the anger. I like to say to people, look, when you're upset about something, when you tell somebody else, you cut the feelings in half. You cut them in half, meaning that if you share with somebody, reveal to somebody, the word I like to use, you are basically offering an opportunity to let it out and to let somebody else know. And you're also inviting them into a trusting relationship where they can see you. And this is the whole concept around being intimate, to intimacy. That's really what it boils down to. And again, it's not always an easy thing. Our culture teaches us that these are not easy things. They should be kind of easy. I mean, think of what kids do. Kids don't hide. Kids put it right out there. I mean, children, up until 5 years of age, are like, they're shooting off their mouth and they're just talking and they're just sharing how they feel and they don't think about anything. Sometimes to the embarrassment of the parents. I know my kids embarrass me all the time with their truth. And it's what happens to us. We become adults and we somehow forget that we can't be that intimate, and that we can't be that honest, and that we can't share that much or reveal that much. We have too much to hide, right? What a crock. So let's kind of get over ourselves and recognize that we name it, share it, and then we have an opportunity truly to bring it to God. And in a way, what we're doing when we're revealing with somebody else is that we're confessing. We're confessing where we are, and think of that person perhaps as being a divine agent in your life. Because sometimes God is really amorphous, and we can't always pinpoint where God is. But in my world, God is everywhere. So that's why I like to set up a chair across from me when I'm praying, because I just pretend, or I just imagine that Christ is there, or God is there, or Yahweh is there, or even Joseph, or any of the biblical characters that I so love that give me a lot of strength. Even Muhammad, I mean, heck, he certainly knew his way around the block. So let's not fool ourselves. Anger is an emotion, and we got to deal with it. But the way we deal with it is by breaking it down and understanding what's underneath. And a lot of times, just naming it and sharing it and describing it and unpacking it is the way to go. So let's do that in our devotional time with what we've got left, and let's settle our minds and our hearts and our souls, and just get content with being where we are, sitting where we are, and focusing. Just focus on your breath. And as I've done last couple of nights, I'll start with a little bit of chiming. Okay, so I would invite you to think of the God in your midst, and to bring that presence and bring that spirit into your heart right now. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And as you're inhaling and exhaling, think of the beauty of God in your life. How God touches you from the moment you wake up. Even if it's raining outside, even if it's cold, there's an element of the Spirit of God that runs through you. Because you are a divine creature. You've been brought into this world to play a divine role and to be a person of spirit. So I invite you to think about yourself as a spiritual being. Somebody who's loving and is loved. Somebody who is caring and is cared for. Somebody who has compassion because you are compassionate. Somebody who brings light into the world because light has been poured upon you. Somebody who has been a moral agent because you have been given morality. Somebody who has delivered virtue in the world because you've been virtuous. These are the elements of a faithful life. These are ways to destroy, really, and eradicate the soul sickness that is running through humanity right now. And I call it a soul sickness because we don't depend on our souls very much. We depend on a lot of things in this life. We depend on our money. We depend on our influence. We depend on our jobs. We depend on so many things that at the end of the day are just superficial. So when we're really talking about soul work, we're talking about what God brings into your life through your soul. So how is your soul? Focus on your soul and ask God to reassure that soul, and to sustain that soul, and to love that soul, and to make that soul a bigger part of your life. And what is soul? Soul is the manifestation of who you are as a person. Not all the stuff, but all the values and the feelings and the tenderness and the caring and the compassion and the love that you're willing to share not only for yourself but those around you. That's soul work. That's empathy. That's caring. So where did you display that today in your life? Did you call a friend? Did you talk to a loved one? Did you pray for the world? I am currently in my own world praying for the life and the family of Michael Melkonian, who was a friend of mine in high school. I just found out died. I don't know how he died, it doesn't matter, but I pray for him. That hits a little too close for home, if you ask me. I pray for him. I pray for his life. I pray for the contributions that he made in the world that he lived in. And I ask God to take him, to love his family as they now grieve. And part of soul work is also grieving, feeling the loss, feeling. It's so important to feel our hearts. It is so important to feel the soul that emanates from our hearts. It's so important to think from our hearts, not always from our heads. Yes, we have to use our heads, but our hearts have their own intuition and their own knowledge and their own excellence and their own intelligence. So help us to grow into that space and to live out as we breathe in and out this ability to harness and control our madness and the anger that we feel. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to feel confused. What's not okay is just let them sit and let them fester and then take them out on people or pets or on things. It's important to recognize the feelings for what they are. So in our meditation time, I'm just going to give you a moment. If you're angry, find a means to soothe yourself. If you're mad, find a way to calm yourself down. Bring it to God. Ask God to help soothe and to comfort those angry feelings, those mad feelings, those frustrations that we have. I'm not here, and nor is God here, to completely fill you with the answers. All I can do is encourage you to do what so many have in the past, to resource something way bigger than themselves and ask for help. Ask for help. And it doesn't matter if you're Catholic. It doesn't matter if you're Protestant. It doesn't matter if you're Jewish. It doesn't matter if you're a Muslim. It doesn't matter if you're a Hindu. It doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist. They're all the same in that they point to something bigger as being our comfort and our refuge and a strength in times of struggle and the times of challenge. So guide us, O God, and strengthen us and help us to be carriers, containers, if you will, of goodness and will to others who are struggling. I mean, I spoke to a few people today that normally I may not have spoken to. And we talked about our frustrations, and we talked about our anger, and we talked about our madness, and we talked about our fears. And it helped. It really, truly helped. And that's just one way to do it. And we'll talk about others as time goes by. But recognize that if we bottle up our resentments, if we put our anger and our fear and our madness into containers and call ourselves and our bodies, there will be trouble. And we will get sick. And we will feel hopeless. And we will feel despair. So it's very important, and I implore you, and I invite you and beg of you to lift up your fears, lift up your anger, lift up your madness to God, and ask Him to gently surround you with His feelings and His tentacles of love. It's the only thing that will eradicate fear. So bless you and guide you this evening. And I encourage you all to take in the Spirit of God into your life tonight, perhaps before you go to bed, and ask for that help as you dream and as you collect and as you find the strength and the wisdom to carry on in these very difficult times. So, God, thank you for this. Bless those who are listening today. Thank you for the wisdom that you've been able to use me as a channel for. And we'll come back here again tomorrow night. And please reach out to me if you have any questions or you want any support. I love you all and bless you all. Have a great night.